8 years, I worked in hospitality, waiting tables and serving the great British general public. And whilst there's nothing wrong with that line of work, it made me absolutely miserable. Here's a picture of me after 3 back-to-back 12-hour shifts during a bank holiday weekend. And if you're British, you'll understand how much carnage a bank holiday weekend is and how accurate this depiction is of how it felt to work on the front lines. So I was miserable, I wasn't enjoying life, and so 10 months ago I decided to put matters back into my own hands. I quit my job and decided to build my own business. I started out copywriting, and then I niched down into LinkedIn ghostwriting, where I managed to get that business to £6,500 per month just last week, using a signature framework I developed to sign dream clients. Now I'm helping founders and freelancers implement the human framework in order to sign dream clients on LinkedIn. It's the framework I'm teaching my current clients, and the same framework I'm going to use to scale my business up to £10,000 per month. It's called the human framework because it zones in on the very thing that makes you unique, which, given the current state of the market, is going to be your secret weapon. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how it works and how you can implement it too to start signing dream clients for your business. So it wouldn't be a framework without a great acronym, would it? I'm sorry to say my offer is an acronym. So the H in human stands for hell yeah positioning, and that is where this journey begins. So positioning is where we identify your offer, your ideal client, and your positioning to attract dream clients. In other words, we get clear on the who, what, and why of your offer. Who do you serve? What do you do for them? And why should they choose you over a competitor, which is a seriously important factor to consider. The reason this is the first thing that we deal with in the human framework is because if you haven't got this part right, you're going to be putting out a lot of effort, and you might not know that you're putting effort in the right direction. So as an example, when I started out as a copywriter, I was very much a generalist, and I was talking about deliverables that people didn't really want. I didn't have a clear idea of who I was selling to, what transformation I was promising, and what was actually setting me apart in the marketplace. If you've been on LinkedIn, you'll know that there are millions of copywriters, and so standing out was essential, and it's not something I was doing. I managed to sign a few clients here and there, but nothing felt consistent until I got clear on my who, my what, and my why. So first things first I do with my clients is help them identify their ICP, or their ideal client profile. What do they call themselves? What problems are they currently facing on both a symptomatic and a root level? What do they actually want? Okay, and what does achieving that actually mean to them? How would business look in 12 months if everything was working out the way they wanted? So we get very granular with our understanding on who we're talking to. And a mistake I see a lot of founders making is they use very assumptive language in this section. They think they've got a pretty good understanding of what the ICP is facing, and they might. But the problem here is that we need to be using the language of the ICP, not the language that we think they'd use to describe their problems. And the easiest way to do that is by asking your ideal client. You might want to find an ideal client you've already worked with in the past, or a potential ideal client that you'd love to work with, and invite them for a short call and ask them these questions. Get an AI note taker like Fathom or Otter to join the call so you can stay present in the conversation whilst all the information is being transcribed in the background. Never assume the answers to these questions, because ultimately the biggest hack in the lead gen space is using the language that your ICP is using to describe their problems. So why is this important? So first of all, self-identification for the leads is essential. Our profile and our content should serve as a mirror. They should be able to look at what we're saying or land on our profile and think, okay, this person is talking to me. Another important piece of this is keeping your messaging focused and powerful. So there'll be a lot of people who think, okay, well, I've got multiple ICP, or my offer works for everybody. And whilst I understand that to a degree, the point here is to choose an ideal client profile. That might be whoever pays you the most money, whoever you get the most job satisfaction from, whoever you know you'll get the best results for. Whatever that is for you, you just need to choose an ideal client and set up your profile to attract them. It doesn't mean that you can't help other people along the way. It just means that your profile is being set up as a honey trap for the best possible person that you could work with, the best possible outcome for your lead generation. You can still help other people along the way, but set up your profile so that it's doing the heaviest lift on autopilot. So once we've gotten clear on the ICP, the next piece of the puzzle is to tackle the offer, the what. What transformation are you promising? What might the common objections be for the ICP? What are the steps you're going to take the client to get from A to B, and what time frame can they expect to see results? So the idea with the offer is to call out the transformation that your ICP desperately wants, using your unique method or unique system as the vehicle to make that happen, whilst wrapping it in the language that the ICP uses to describe that problem, to describe that desire. Having a unique system or a unique offer that has a name, that has individuality, immediately boosts trust and credibility with your leads. If I was to tell you that I could help you sign dream clients on LinkedIn, but I didn't have a tangible system to help you get from A to B, you'd be far less likely to trust me than if I approached you and explained I have a 5-step process called the Human Framework. It just sounds more credible and it just sounds more realistic. Another important piece of the offer is boosting the perceived likelihood of success for the lead. So Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot in his book, $100 Million Offers. You've probably read it. So essentially the philosophy here is most people, when they're making a buying decision, think that they are the exception, right? They see a cool offer, they think, wow, that's amazing, but it's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for me because I don't have time. I don't want to do DMs. I don't want to feel salesy. Okay, so the offer is a great opportunity for us to pre-handle some objections straight off the bat in our profile and in our content. So, for example, I help you sign dream clients in 12 weeks on LinkedIn using my human system, even if you hate feeling salesy and with just 30 minutes per day in the DMs. Immediately, I'm pre-handling some objections that might prevent somebody from wanting to take action with me. Which brings us to the final part of Hell Yeah positioning, which is why. Why should they choose you over somebody else? And this is all about your USP. So part of this is your unique method or system, which we briefly covered in the what piece. But more importantly, it's what makes you different. What parts of your life can create relatability, which is an essential part of lead generation, especially for founders in the service industry like coaches or consultants? What parts of your life can you use as an anchor story to continually refer to in your content? A huge part of my offer is about signing dream clients. And the best way to sign dream clients is by being yourself. Because by design, by being yourself and by being authentic, you will attract people aligned to you, your values, your motivations, and your core philosophies. That's how humans work. We trust people who are relatable and familiar to us. So as an example, I constantly refer to my background in hospitality because I want to attract people who understand what it's like to work a job they don't enjoy and be striving towards building a future and building a life that they absolutely love with clients they love to serve. The key here is to be authentic and to use your real story strategically and with intention. But the key takeaway here is to be authentic. And this part of the positioning, sometimes people find it a little bit difficult to understand why it's so important to have a USP and to talk about what makes you, you. But given the state of the market and given the role of AI and content, it has never been more important to stand out and to differentiate yourself in this marketplace. And so getting very clear on your positioning in conjunction with your who and your what has never been more important. And it's something I help my clients with and also do in my own content. All right, so that is the hell yeah positioning part. Next, we're gonna move on to the U, which is upgrade your profile. So essentially what we're doing here is taking all of that information we've learned from hell yeah positioning and populating it on our profile. So the goal with your LinkedIn profile is for you to be able to generate leads with minimal effort. As I said in the last section, the idea with the profile is for it to be set up as a honey trap for the most ideal client. So when they see you in the feed, they click on your profile, when they see a piece of your content and they land on your profile, they will see, okay, this person is for me, I know what they do, I know what problem they solve, the who, the what, and the why is super clear. I would like to take action with this person. So how does that look? First thing we're going to tackle is the above the fold copy. So this is the headline and the banner. So above the fold, if you're not familiar, just means everything that the person can see on the profile without scrolling down. And actually, your headline will appear in the feed with your content. So it's that little piece, that little sentence just below your name on the feed. So this also serves as a hook. As people are scrolling through their feed, they'll read your headline and this will encourage them to click on your profile if it resonates, right? So that's our headline. And then the banner serves as the core value proposition. What is the number one desired outcome of your ICP? And this should be crystal clear on your banner. So let's start with my hook. Scaling to 10K a month with an offer I love and signing dream clients only, helping my clients do the same with my human system. So from a messaging perspective, we have clearly identified painful pain points from a financial and an emotional point of view. It's increasing that deprivation for people who don't have a 10K month, and it's increasing that deprivation for people who don't sign dream clients or maybe don't like their offer. And it's also boosting my credibility by naming my system, my unique human system. And this is when it gets quite interesting. From a trust building perspective, the way my headline is frames the value proposition as my own personal journey too, right? What this is saying is, hey, I'm in the trenches as well. I'm figuring this out as well, and I'm documenting and learning as I go. So this builds trusts, and it builds camaraderie within me and my ICP. So this is powerful because it's crafting a narrative that my ICP can not only relate to, but buy into as well. And maybe they'll start rooting for me. Maybe they'll check up on me. Has Amber achieved her 10K month yet? What steps is Amber taking to get it done? And then we're talking about the banner. So like I said, this should be the core value proposition here. So again, I'm talking about dream clients and ultimate freedom. Using metrics, so numbers, is a really good device to use here as well. And you'll notice that I've infused the banner with personality, so just wasted 2 hours on Canva for this. So this was actually my initial banner, except all of this was blank and it was just wasted 2 hours on Canva for this. And this actually generated me some leads in the past, so I kept it in because it retains that humorous, not taking it too seriously kind of energy, which is something that I embody with my offer. So I've kept the personality there because for me, signing dream clients is all about signing people who enjoy a little bit of humor. So have a think about how your headline and your banner could look. What is your core value proposition? What problem are you solving? And who is your ICP? This should all be very clear in your above the fold copy. For the about section, what we're working with here is essentially a concise summary of your offer. So a lot of people on LinkedIn talk about the about section being an elevator pitch, which is a really nice way of looking at it. We're calling out the ICP, we're calling out some pain points, we're calling out our core value proposition, and then a list of steps that we take in order to get them from A to B. So boosting that credibility and boosting that trust. And then of course, a CTA or a call to action at the end, which is book a call using the link in my profile. A lot of people will also use this space to put client wins and testimonials as well. So the final part of the profile is the featured section. So in the featured section, I personally have the left-hand side is a big CTA. So this goes straight to my calendar link, and the anchor text here is sign dream clients on LinkedIn, run a business you love. So very consistent messaging throughout and very compelling messaging for my ICP throughout. On the other side, I have a piece of social proof, and I try to cycle through social proof as it happens in my business on the right hand side. So I tried to keep this one as up to date as I can with new client testimonials or success stories. So that is how I have set up my profile to attract dream clients. I've got the biggest fish, which is founders and freelancers signing dream clients consistently, so your business feels like ultimate freedom, and dressing it up as this is also the personal journey I'm on to break down those barriers. The key takeaways here for your profile should be: make the who, the what, and the why clear as day. It should be obvious as soon as your ICP lands on your profile who you serve, what you help them do, and why they should choose you. Overstate the desired outcome. What we want to do is really increase that feeling of deprivation with the ICP. So it really increases their sense of urgency that they want to work with you to fix that problem. Again, infuse your profile with personality, make your USP obvious, make it human, make it stand out, right? Like, there is so much same corporate BS on LinkedIn. Just by having a personality, you will stand out. And then of course, make your CTAs obvious. I recommend having two, one in the featured section and one custom link at the top of your profile. Now we know who we're talking to, so we need to know what we're going to say. So, oh God, there is so much bad advice about outreach on LinkedIn, outreach in general, to be honest with you. And I think that's largely due to this birth of AI and how quick and easy and automated everything could be. But the problem with that mindset is that we're losing touch with what outreach actually is. And that is the first touch point that you are having with a potential customer for your product or service. And when service founders, so coaches, consultants, agency owners, this is even more important because in a lot of ways, the service is actually you, or a big part of you, and your personal brand plays a big role in the delivery. So automating this first touch point is not the best way to consistently sign dream clients, and it's not a very good first impression. So there's a lot of bad outreach on LinkedIn because a lot of people are prioritizing efficiency over authenticity. And what I mean by that is they're going for sheer output over having meaningful, productive conversations with a potential client. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong. If you're on LinkedIn, you'll know there's such thing as a pitch slap. And this is essentially where someone comes into your LinkedIn inbox unprovoked with a pitch of their service or an invitation to an event, something very unsolicited and with zero context. A lot of the time they haven't even looked at your profile. And so quite often you may be able to sign one or two clients from this kind of mass automated way. But the reality is it is not a sustainable way to sign dream clients consistently. So in this section, I'm going to teach you how to actually get responses and book sales calls with aligned clients. So the problem that a lot of founders have is that they want outreach to be super quick and super efficient, but especially when you're starting out, that just isn't the case. When there's a shiny new tool for this, that, and the other at the moment, it's very easy to assume that LinkedIn outreach can be the same and you can get it done just like that and have a full calendar. But the truth is there is no silver bullet that works across the board, because when you think about outreach, you're dealing with people, you're having conversations with people, and that cannot be generalized and templatized across every offer and every ICP. It just doesn't work. And so unfortunately, it does take effort and it does take time. But once you understand what works for your offer and for your ICP, there isn't any reason why you can't templatize, automate it to a degree, or delegate it. There's no reason why you can't do that. But fundamentally, you need to understand how it works, and you need to understand how your customers think and what they feel before doing so. And so I would recommend, at an absolute minimum, you need to be sending 125 connection requests every week. So that's 25 a day, Monday through Friday. And you need to be sending 40 new DMs a week. And that doesn't include follow-ups or replying to people. That's 40 new DMs every week if you're in recruitment mode for new clients. And the tool that I use for my lead generation and the tool that I teach my clients to use is LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I am planning to make a video about LinkedIn Sales Navigator at some point because it can be a little confusing to start with. But ultimately what we're doing with LinkedIn Sales Navigator is it filters every single personal and company page that exists on LinkedIn. And you can filter through all of those people and all of those businesses using these filters. So things like company headcount, job title, whether or not they posted on LinkedIn, whether or not they viewed your profile recently. And with the business pages, you can filter out annual revenue, the size of a department, and you can also cross-reference the list of companies you make through the leads, meaning if you want to find founders of 500k plus companies or founders of companies with a very small marketing department, you can do so. If my leads haven't come through referral, they've come through LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It is one of the most powerful B2B prospecting tools in existence right now. The idea is we are making a list of our most ideal client profile. Who are the people most likely to need our help? And and we make that list and we connect with those people 25 every day. But then who do we talk to? So what most people do wrong is they will message an ICP as soon as they accept their connection request. And this is a mistake because it can be quite obvious the reason why you're messaging, and also there is zero trust or familiarity at that point. You're just another stranger coming into their inbox unsolicited. If you think about LinkedIn as a massive physical marketplace, okay, and as you're scrolling through the post, that's you walking through the marketplace, okay? You scroll through posts and that's you looking left and right to see people's stalls, what they're selling. And when you leave a comment, you might be calling over to the seller, you might be engaging with other people looking at the stalls in the comments, but you're not actually approaching the stall yet. You're not actually seeing what the person is selling, not really. But then you might see a post that really catches your eye, or you might read a headline that really piques your interest. And then you might think, okay, I'm interested, and then you walk over to the stall, or you view the profile. Buying decisions do not take place in the feed. People aren't scrolling to want to buy something. They're scrolling for entertainment. They're scrolling because they're bored. They're scrolling because they've got a lunch break. They're not there to buy. As soon as people land on your profile, that is a very positive signal that they could be interested in buying what you're selling. This is why profile views are the warmest possible ICP that you can outreach to. Just make sure that they match the ICP that we've already identified. The second warmest is content engagers, specifically your bottom of funnel or prove content, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Because that means that they've seen your content, so there's already a certain level of trust being established, or at least, at the very least, they're familiar with who you are and what you do to an extent. And finally, the recently accepted connections. So fall back on these to hit your outreach quota. But the nuance here is wait a few days after they've accepted your connection request before you reach out to them. This way, LinkedIn will have already started pushing your content to them. They'll be a little bit warmer. They might know who you are already. I'm going to teach you the SCORE framework, which is the framework I use and the same framework that I teach my clients to sign their clients. So there are a lot of iterations on LinkedIn of a similar kind of framework. If you've heard of or are familiar with the SPIN framework in sales, it's very similar to that. And the reason there are so many iterations of the same framework is because it works. But each creator teaching this framework gives it their own spin, gives it their own flavor. So for me, I've come up with the SCORE framework. So the first step in the SCORE framework is situation. So the very first message that we're going to send somebody has two parts. We've got the personalized compliment, and then we've got the qualifying question. So this is very standard advice across LinkedIn for the people who are doing outreach effectively. So not only are we sending a personalized compliment, but we're actually trying to find some common ground with the lead. So I spend a couple of minutes, look through the profile and find something about them that I can also find common ground with. So it could be a subject they talked about in their content. It could be a university that they went to. It could be a hobby or a passion they mentioned they had. It could be a picture with their family that, I don't know, I wanted to say something nice about it and talk about how I feel about my family. What we're trying to do here is disarm them a little bit from thinking they're being sold to, because another way you need to look at outreach is that you're not here to sell. You're here to diagnose. You're here to figure out if you can actually help somebody solve a problem. Because if you can't, then there's absolutely no point in you being in that conversation, and there's no point in them jumping on the sales call with you if you are unable to solve a problem that they're dealing with. And this is the problem where these unprovoked messages feel irrelevant, unsolicited, because they are pitching a problem that they don't even know that we have. They're pitching a solution to a problem that they don't know exists. And this is what makes it very annoying. So the first message, we're going to build some rapport with a compliment. And the trick here is to actually mean what you're saying and to make it as authentic as possible. And yes, it might take you a little bit longer to do the messages, but this is what I mean when I say we're prioritizing authenticity over efficiency. Once you get an idea of what works with your ideal client, what works with your offer, so there isn't any reason why when you work out what works, you can't templatize, outsource, automate to a degree, though I wouldn't recommend automation to be honest. But once you work out what works for your audience, there isn't any reason why you can't shorten the process a little bit. But in my opinion, you need to be in the trenches to understand what works for your ideal client and your offer. So the personalized compliment is the first part. The second part of the first message is a question. So we want to ask the lead if they are in a situation that we can help them with. So let me give you an example. For my offer, that would be, what's the goal with LinkedIn at the moment? Is it to score new clients, raise awareness, or something else? Okay, so the idea with this question is to be a super low lift. The question should be a yes or no answer, a one-word answer, or you should give them a selection of choices to choose from. So as an example, score new clients, raise awareness, or something else. We don't want them to think too hard about the answer, because then they're going to ghost us effectively. Like I said, there's a lot of trash in the LinkedIn DMs, and if one cuts through the noise but is then a bit too difficult to answer, you're going to lose them. So the second part of the situation question is to actually understand if the lead is in a situation that we can help them with. So treat it almost as a soft qualifier for the offer, right? If I know that they're in a situation that I can help them with, we can then proceed to the next part of the framework. And also, to keep outreach a little less overwhelming, the first goal of the first message is just to get a reply. Like I said at the beginning of this section, 90% of LinkedIn DMs are absolutely shit. And so by getting a reply from your message, you're going to be way ahead of others. The lead has responded, they've answered our situation-based question. The next step of the SCORE framework is to find out their challenge. In other words, where's the pain? We want to diagnose the pain. If our lead has not identified a pain that they're dealing with, how can we then frame our offer as the solution? And again, this is why pitch slaps fail so miserably, because they are skipping this very important step of having the lead say from themselves what the problem is, what the pain is. We're not trying to convince them that they have a pain that we can help fix. We want to hear them say what their pain is and then frame our offer around that pain. This is a nuance here, not in a manipulative way, okay? We want to frame the offer as a solution to their pain using their language. We don't want to create an offer out of thin air to fix a problem that we don't know that we can solve. The point here is to be authentic and to be real and to be transparent and honest, okay? What we're actually doing is using how they perceive their pain, how they perceive their desires, and using that language to wrap the offer as the solution. So a few ways we can ask questions here is, say for example, this person has said, I want to score new clients on my LinkedIn content. Great. What's the challenge with that right now? Yeah, this is a really easy way to get somebody to reveal what pain they're feeling. It could be no one's replying to my DMs. It could be I don't know how to get them from the beginning to booking the call. It could be anything. But having this nice open-ended question gives them the floor to express their pain. And we want to follow that step as we move into the outcome section. So once we've identified the pain, and it's very important here, and this goes for all steps of the framework, we never proceed to the next letter until the goal of the letter that we're on has been met. For example, the situation, we want to know what situation they're in. That's the goal. The goal of challenge is to identify the pain. We can't move on to outcome until that pain has been identified, and so on, so forth. So the outcome section of SCORE is, what do they actually want to happen? Okay, what's the desire here? Knowing how to frame your offer, again, will make it easier to sell. And this is not in a manipulative way. We are literally just using their language rather than our own language to describe the desire, to describe the pain, okay? We're not creating something out of nothing. We're altering the way that we describe it and talk about it. One of my favorite ways to fulfill the outcome section of SCORE is, if you had things your way, what would be happening instead? And this is a really nice way to lead off of the challenge question, right? They've identified the pain, and we can reflect that, we can acknowledge that, and we can say, God, yeah, that does sound tough. Well, if you had things your way, what would be happening instead? Okay, this is a really nice way to set the scene for them, to tell us what they actually really want, rather than what we think they want. The penultimate part of SCORE is the roadblock. So now that we know what they want, we want to know what they think is stopping them from achieving that goal, right? What is the gap between where they are and where they want to be? What do they think is that messy middle, that hurdle that they can't overcome? So again, this is a really easy one to ask. What's stopping you from achieving outcome, right? So mirroring back the language that they use to describe it. And again, this is so that we can acknowledge from them what they think the gap is, so we can frame our offer as a solution to bridge that gap. And the final piece is empower. So a lot of people go straight for the call after this point, but what I like to do is offer a little bit of free value before I offer the call. I want to approach the conversation curiously, consultatively, and help the lead understand that, like, even before any money has been exchanged, I want to be valuable to them. I want to help them succeed. So offering a free piece of value. So this kind of is up to you how you decide to do this one. I quite often just give a little a nugget of advice, an observation. Maybe I'll go on their profile and I'll say, okay, I think this could be slowing you down. But some people might take this a little step further. So I know somebody who offers SEO services and they do Loom videos, or web developers or copywriters might create Loom videos of a prospect's website or a blog article and start pinpointing where they could improve things. So I'm not suggesting to give away all of your offer, all of your value, but a little nugget of advice will put you ahead of people who just want to go straight onto the call, because you're demonstrating that you want to help them succeed even before any money has been exchanged. And so you might find that a lot of people that have unsuccessful DMs, they start with this, okay? They might come into your inbox unsolicited with a Loom video or with a mini audit saying, I noticed X, Y, and Z about your website. Here's what I think you can do to fix it. And the reason this doesn't work is because of that unsolicited nature of it. You're essentially coming into someone's inbox and saying, okay, this is your baby, your project, you're the founder of this thing, and I'm basically telling you why X, Y, and Z about it sucks, right? In not so many words. And a business coach friend of mine, Ed Deason, you should check him out, he's great. But he essentially calls this strategy calling someone's baby ugly. And when you think about it, it's true, right? Like, you are coming into someone's space, you're not even finding out if they've got a problem, and you're telling them, okay, this thing that you might have spent 10 hours building, here's why it sucks. Whereas the powerful thing is, if you've gotten the lead to tell you what their pain is, what they want instead, the roadblock they think that is separating them from where they are and where they want to be. Do you see how much more powerful that Loom video, that piece of advice becomes, because it is contextual, it's in reference to what they know their problem to be. And then at the end of that piece of value, we give them a friendly invitation to a call. So this is not a pitch. This is literally, I help my clients with this all the time. Shall we chat through it on a quick call? Or I think I can help you overcome that. I do this all the time. Do you have any time to talk about it? Right? Super simple. And it's framed as in a helpful way rather than an invasive, pitchy or pushy way, right? It's the natural conclusion to this conversation if we followed each step of SCORE properly. So that's the framework I use. There's just a couple of rules that if you can take away anything from this part of the video, it would be this. When it comes to outreach, don't pitch. You are not there to pitch. You are there to diagnose and to understand. Is this person in a situation that you can help them with? Can you be genuinely helpful? Can you genuinely add value to this person's life? Right? And the way we do that is through asking questions. Every message should end with a question from you, okay? If they've asked you a question first about yourself, acknowledge that first. Always end the message with a question, because that will also encourage them to give you a reply. Mirror back their language. This is so important with sales. This is what good sales is. Ultimately, people just want to feel seen and understood. When we mirror back their language to them, they feel seen and they feel understood, and they feel like they're on the same wavelength as you, right? You're not trying to sell something that somebody doesn't want. You're trying to meet them where they're at by framing it in the language that they use to describe the problem or to describe the desire, right? But make sure that your offer can actually fulfill that promise. And lastly, again, you'll probably be ahead of 90% of people in the LinkedIn DMs if you are kind, authentic, and human. All right, and the letter A, so authentic content. So we've built our outbound system with the DM strategy and the sales navigator strategy. Now we want to start building an inbound system to build trust with an aligned audience, demonstrate credibility, and also get some inbound leads. So in order to build trust with our audience these days, I believe that we need to build trust in 3 core areas: in expertise, in relatability, and with proof. If you're familiar with a content funnel, so top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel content, it's similar style content in terms of relatability content is top of funnel, expertise content is middle of funnel, and proof content is bottom of funnel. But I disagree with the idea of a funnel in general, that leads fall through in a neat little way and they come out the end as buying customers. I think the reality of the situation is people hop around all parts of your content all the time, right? They might come across They might come across a relatability post about you and your life, then they might move on to an expertise post where you explain a framework, then they might see a proof post where you go through a case study, and then they might go back to relatability post again. So ultimately, I like to think of it as a fuel gauge in a car. Each prospect has a different trust meter or a different trust gauge, and the speed in which that trust gauge fills up depends on the person, right? Depends on their buying behavior, depends on their psychology. So every piece of content that goes out needs to be done with intention, with purpose, and to touch one of the points of the trust triangle. So first of all, expertise. We are answering the question that the ICP has, can they solve my problem? This is the part of the content, and it's very similar to middle of funnel if you're familiar, where we talk about the way we see the problem. We offer advice, we offer mind reframes, we offer frameworks. We demonstrate to the ICP that we are an expert and an authority in our niche, but without giving away all of our knowledge and all of our value. A good rule of thumb for expertise content is if somebody else in your niche could have written the same piece of content, it is not authentic enough to you. And this is what's going to set founders apart from AI generated content, is by infusing each piece of content with personal insight, personal experience, personal opinion about the subject. We want it to be obvious to the ICP that we can solve their problems and that we've got experience doing it. The second part of the trust triangle is the relatability piece, and we're answering the question that the ICP has. Can I relate to them? Do I like them? And this is what I meant when I was talking about the hell yeah positioning piece with the USP. So with the relatability content, we are giving the ICP a peek behind the curtain into our life. We are starting to establish a parasocial relationship with the audience. We are doubling down on the things that make us unique, our values, our motivations, our philosophies, the anchor stories that I mentioned at the beginning, the things that are fundamental to us as people and to our own authentic story, our unique story. So this is where the dream clients piece comes in, because you will start to cultivate an audience of people who relate to you, who like you, and who trust you. Because too much of expertise and you start to become a little bit hollow, right? They know you can solve their problem, but they don't know if they know you well enough as a person. And ultimately, we're social creatures, so that know, like, and trust piece is going to come into a buying decision. It always will. And the final piece of the trust triangle is proof. Trust through proof. Have they solved problems for people like me? So this is your classic case studies, client success stories, even your own transformation. And I do a lot of this in my own content. I talk about how I've gotten myself from A to B and the frameworks I've done to get myself there. So basically, we want to be putting our money where our mouth is. We've demonstrated that we've got our own unique offer and our own unique system. But what we haven't done yet is shown that it works. So this is your opportunity to show all the success stories that you've got. And even better, if you can show the ICP that you've solved problems for someone just like them. Because again, it boosts that relatability and it boosts that trust. In my experience, a sale happens when all three parts of this triangle have been achieved. It's almost like a trust meter, right? Somebody needs to reach maximum trust in you before they buy from you. And that trust meter, that threshold will be different for everybody, right? Someone might just need to see one expertise, one relatability, and one proof, and they'll be good to go. For other people, they might need to be nurtured for a long time. The last investment I made in myself, I was being nurtured by my coach for 1 year before I bought from him. And it was because I was missing this relatability piece. I knew he could solve my problem. I knew he'd done it for people just like me, but I hadn't been able to relate to him yet until he switched up his content style. And I started to understand that I liked him as a person, as well as just him knowing what he was doing. So don't underestimate relatability content. It is so, so important. It's also worth mentioning that your content has to use the language that the ICP uses to describe their problems, their pains, their desires, their objections. It's a very common theme throughout this video that I'm saying this, but it is so important to wrap every message in the language that your ICP uses. And in terms of cadence, so for me personally, I post 5 times a week. I know others that post 7 times a week, but I do 2 expertise, 2 relatability, and 1 proof across the week. If you want to do 7 days, I would recommend just doing an extra expertise and an extra relatability post. And just to give you a couple of examples of what this looks like. So an expertise post that I wrote recently was, content funnels have stopped working for me. The way consultants, coaches, and founders approach LinkedIn content is changing. So I'm kind of dangling the carrot here here because it's quite a contrarian take, right? Everybody's talking about content funnels on LinkedIn and in marketing in general, right? And I'm saying here that they don't work anymore. So it's giving the expertise without giving everything away, because I want to pique their interest enough to actually take action with me rather than just take what I've said and try to implement it on their own. And the stats from this was 4 saves and a couple of CTA engagements. So this is my book and appointment link. So I found from expertise posts, most likely analytics you'll get from that is saves, because people will think, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. The next time I'm dealing with this problem, I'll refer back to this post. I'm going to save it. And that also boosts my post to LinkedIn. Not that I'm worried too much about impressions and engagements, because honestly, I'm not. But it shows to LinkedIn that I am being perceived as an expert in that area. And then of course, the CTA for me is the ultimate KPI. If people are actually booking calls from that post, then I know it's something I need to double down on in the future. And just to build on what I said just there with impressions and engagement, a lot of people get hung up on this, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. The LinkedIn algorithm is changing all the time. So chasing metrics like impressions and engagements is constantly going to have you chasing your tail. If you are tracking how many sales calls you're booking with dream clients, that is the number one thing that you need to be looking at. Because also, a lot of people that I work with in the past, they never once engaged with my content, and they're what's known as lurkers, right? So don't take impressions and engagement at face value. If you have 100 impressions, but those 100 people are super aligned to you and your offer, that's far better than 10,000 impressions with people who will never buy from you. An example I've got here is my biggest motivation to do well in business has nothing to do with me. It's all about my loved ones. So here I'm talking about my values and my motivations. So the most likely analytic you're going to get from relatability posts is followers and profile views, and probably higher engagement as well. And that's because relatability posts are more generally accepted and generally liked posts, right? Because I'm talking about me personally. So I'm going to appeal to more people because it's not a niche piece of content. So finally, we've got my piece of proof content. So again, like I said, case studies, client testimonials, and I've just realized that red hot and 2 are the wrong way around. It's very embarrassing. So that is content. And the final piece of the puzzle is N for nurture and grow. So if you think about the first 4 letters, so HUMA, so dialing in your offer and your positioning, setting up your profile, optimizing your profile, setting up your consistent and repeatable outbound and inbound lead generation systems through messages and content. The final piece of the puzzle is to track what is and what isn't working. None of this matters if we're not going to pay attention to the numbers. The numbers help us figure out where we're going right and where we're going wrong. And LinkedIn is a great platform for lead generation because there are so many things that you can track, so many signals that you can use to identify where things are going wrong and where things are going right. For example, you can use your acceptance rate to test how effective your headline and your banner is, right? Because people click on your profile usually before they accept your connection request. You can use your response rate so the response to the first DM, you can use that to identify whether your compliment and your question is any good, right? And then you can iterate on that. Your booked call rate, you can use that to identify how effective your questions are in the DMs to getting people to book a call, right? How well you understand their problems and how well you understand the urgency. Your conversion rate, that is a strong indicator of how much people do or don't trust you. And actually, interestingly, your conversion rate can be increased through content, which not a lot of people realize. If someone was super a red hot lead for me after reading my content, they wouldn't really need much convincing when they sit on me with a sales call because they've already got that trust meter all the way to the top. All they need now is just the formality of being on the call. And sometimes it's not even that. And finally, inbound leads, which you can also increase by the quality of your content. And you can only do that by measuring what has been bringing in leads and what hasn't. So that is the human system in a nutshell. From hell yeah positioning, where you dial in your offer, your ICP and your USP, to upgrading your profile, how can you best articulate that information on your profile and get clients excited about working with you, to then booking in sales calls or dream clients by connecting with them on Sales Navigator, waiting for them to view your profile or engage with your content, and then working through this framework to get them onto a call, knowing that you can actually help them and not just a pointless coffee chat or a very unqualified lead, to then writing trust building content across all 3 key areas of the trust triangle, and then measuring what's working and what isn't working, doubling down on what is and removing what isn't working. And that is the human system in a nutshell. As I said, this is the exact system that I'm going to be using to sign dream clients on LinkedIn and scale my business to 10K a month and beyond, and teaching my clients to do the same thing. If you want to do the same thing as well, I've got a call booking link in the description below. You can book in a call with me. If you've got any more questions about the system, you want some more information, or you want to learn more about me, then feel free to send me a DM on LinkedIn. I sincerely hope that you found this video useful, and I hope that you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. As I grow, scale my business and sign new clients, I'm going to be using the YouTube platform to document my learnings and to keep you guys updated with how I'm growing the business and how you can do the same thing for yours. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care and see you in the next one. Bye.